Welcome to the Hospitality Podcast.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Come on, man.
I just need it.
This is the lamb.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Presented by Arthur Gomez
God damn, I just spent $8,000 on some f***ing wine.
and Quentin Wind.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
So pour yourself a glass because we're diving into the world of restaurants, kitchen and bar. The Hospitality Podcast.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Welcome back to Breaking the Cork. Today it's the special episode, part 2 of the episode with Victoria.
Yeah, we went for a very long discussion and we decided to do 2 parts of it. So yeah, welcome to part 2.
Exactly. So we continue the discussion with Victoria Sharples, the head of wine, group head of wine actually, of Follow Restaurant and Row.
Yeah, and well, what are we waiting for?
Let's go. On another subject, because
Yes.
we were talking about the service in restaurant, etc. Something which is very important now in a service in a restaurant is the glassware. And you also bring us 3 beautiful glasses. Do you want to talk about these glasses? I love them. They're really nice.
I'm very glad.
Yeah.
Just as well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had any champagne.
Yeah. True.
So these are, and I may have, I think you saw that reel where I had a bit of a, I think I need like a special what gets my goat or some sort of hashtag of what really annoys me. Stemware, because it's called Stemware now, not glassware, it's Stemware. Let's remember because they have stems. Yes, I brought these, which is a little baby stem. And it's one whole piece.
It's not welded.
It is. There are no little.
How would you say that? You wouldn't say welding, obviously, because that's for
No
metal.
joins. Join.
Is it
so
joined?
It's,
Yeah.
it's a lot of wine glasses are in 2 or 3
Yeah.
pieces,
Yeah.
and as soon as you start polishing glasses, the
Yeah.
natural tendency is to twist, and snap goes the stem.
Yeah.
But also a long stem, it's easy to knock over on a table. Putting it into any kind of glass washer, dishwasher at home, wherever, it's so easy for them to topple, snap, and
Of course.
it does my head in. These are my favorite glasses. I have been using this or the previous iteration for about, oh God, if I say 20 years, does that sound like
2 years, she said.
2 years.
a couple of years now?
2 months.
So back in Australia, I bought the last of them. So these are Schatzwiesel. I'm
Okay.
not being paid for this, just so we're clear. I'm a huge fan of their glassware. And they apparently were part of the Riedel family originally. There was a splintering off. Now, I may have some of that wrong, but I'm not so fussed about the history. It's more about what the glass is. It's a bit like a wine.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a lovely history and story, but for me, it's what's in the glass or what the glass is.
Okay. Yeah.
And so for me, I brought these. Yes, when I had my bar, I finally was able to get these stem. I'm like, oh, fantastic. I can have the glasses that I want to share with people and to show what I think is a great all-rounder glass. And as you see, I use it for champagne,
Yeah.
sparkling. I use this glass for everything.
Okay.
Sweet wines, reds, whites, the works.
Beer.
Everything.
It's my standard all-rounder. And this is all I have at home.
Do you want to tell how many you've
Not
bought?
because I have a lot of them, but because I
think it's
love
important to say how many you've bought.
She can supply a lot of restaurants.
them. Not anymore, but when I discovered
They were going to stop it.
when I discovered, when I was setting up my bar, a restaurant, I thought, oh, fantastic, I can get hold of these glasses. And I rang the supplier and they said, oh no, they've been discontinued. And the sound that came out of my mouth was significant. And I thought, oh, for God's sake, of all the one time that and I'm like, no, you have to find these for me. And they were able to find about 5 pallets. So 5 pallets. There's a lot of glasses.
Oh, wait, how many glasses it is in 5
Oh,
pallets?
that's so it's six glasses in a box. It sounds more than 5 pallets of wine. It was sort of smaller, but they were all
Yeah.
delivered on 5 pallets. So they're quite big boxes that hold them.
Is it at least 5,000 glasses?
There may have been about not quite. Yeah, there was several thousand.
Okay.
I still have some available for details. No, but I love them, and so I use them at my bar. A couple of other bars and restaurants have taken some of them as well, but I just love them because as a solid single piece, they're also the technology. I now sound like an advertisement. The technology they use, they're guaranteed for 1,000 washes not to go cloudy. And we know in London, glasses go cloudy.
Oh, God,
it's
yeah.
particularly a problem here than they
Yeah,
were
the
in
water.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just find these are great because everything tastes good.
Okay.
Very easy to handle.
Really
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
I mean, I just brought them one in a handbag and one in a little side box. You know,
Yeah.
they stick in a dishwasher. They're super friendly.
They sit well on my nose, I know.
Yeah.
They do, don't
Yeah,
they?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're,
there's good opening, you know.
No, they're really nice.
but as I said, they discontinued them. And much like me, they were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And the previous glass they had, which wasn't so angled, it was a more rounded. They stopped those too, but I bought all the rest of those back to Australia.
Do you remember how much you pay? Because, I mean, for people who don't know, like wine glasses are very expensive.
So this is a special, they have a special name for them, and I'm going to say titanium, that's not the right word, but there is a
Okay.
particular, the technology they use so it doesn't go cloudy.
Okay.
But these would have retailed at about 25 a stem.
25.
Retail.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
25 a glass
stem.
retail price.
So we're talking, proper Riedel. I mean, we're not talking Zalto.
Yeah.
Less.
Zalto is great.
Zalto has a place.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zalto. I'm going to be.
I
Sorry,
love Zalto glasses.
we love Zalto, but I will tell you a fun story. So when I was, and you can edit this out if you need to.
No. We don't edit anything.
So when I was over here studying my MW, we had to have our own glasses we'd bring every time, so it was consistent. And these weren't being made. I had the previous ones, but they were in Australia. I thought, okay, I'll find something here. And we went to Zalto and took a wine that we knew and tried a whole lot of different versions. Because you want to be able to understand a wine and make sure it's consistent every time. The glass I chose was the Zalto water glass,
Yeah.
Interesting.
which was really interesting. But, so it pulled everything. So I could identify every single thing. So I knew, the wine that I knew, then I'd try it through these, it gave me the best result. But then when I tried the wine, it was almost complicating it for me. And I complicate things enough, so that was one step too far. Because I could find everything, but I couldn't bring it together. So then I ended up ditching those and using a glass that I was using at the Wine Challenge. So I was able to acquire some of theirs, which were a far more, not an ISO, but more of a Chianti glass, which
Yeah.
this is not dissimilar in shape.
Yeah. No, it's a nice.
But I like the fineness. It's not too fine.
Yeah.
I don't feel like if I
That's
look
true.
at it, I'm going to break it.
Mm.
And I don't look, if I hold the stem too firmly, it'll snap.
It
and
has
that's where I
balance.
have this issue. Anything that, you
true.
know,
It feels good. Beer would
Yeah.
look amazing in there as well.
yeah. I mean, that look,
They'll-
beer looks, I mean, they do a very similar beer
Yeah.
glass. And people
Especially in
look at
France,
that and
they
think
have
it's
that,
beer.
yeah.
But for me, I will drink
yeah.
all my wines in this glass.
Del, the water glasses they have is a
Yes.
bit similar than this one.
Very
if I'm
similar.
right? Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah, that's that would be the closest cousin. So if I had to go and find more, I'd probably go to them because
Okay.
no one is doing, they're not doing short stems.
No.
And I think it's crazy because it's the most practical, particularly in a restaurant setting. Because if you have a table, anything that's too high, it's so easy to knock,
Yeah.
whether it's, guests or staff. And then it's the washing, the drying. And unless you're using Winterhalter that does all the special clever things where you don't actually need to polish the glasses, my God, it does sound like a commercial, doesn't it? But, if I see a restaurant with too many fancy glasses, I will walk away.
Why?
Because the glasses, they've probably been given them. But I just think it's too fancy for the difference. And I know when Riedel, originally, many years ago, when Riedel introduced, they did the black tasting glass.
Oh yeah.
And it was a trade fair out there,
The countryside.
Excel.
Okay.
Yeah, countryside, yeah.
Yeah. Excel. Well, Excel is almost a countryside.
Excel in East London. And you could have there was a competition and you could try and taste what the wine was and guess it. And you could win yourself a black tasting glass. What's interesting about that is that what you couldn't tell if it was red or white wine.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that colour is such a perception.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? I was going somewhere and I went completely sideways. Damn it. But prior to that, I had a friend who went to a Riedel tasting and it was all the different glasses. And this was probably 20 years ago where And even at the time, we're going, what, seriously? And you had your burgundy shape, but it's all about the science of how the wine is delivered onto your palate, because every glass will deliver it slightly differently. And so whether it's their Sauvignon Blanc glass versus a Chardonnay versus, then they'll have there was a Syrah versus there was a Syrah which was much deeper. And then there would have been more of a Rhone glass, which
Because the Burgundy was a bit more
Burgundy
square.
is much more ballooned.
Yeah. Balloon or square?
Ballooned.
It's the balloon. Okay. Yeah.
So Pinot and Chardonnay, they go more balloon, so you get more air. But it's how the wine is actually delivered onto your tongue. So one is the fragrance, the aromats, but then it's how it delivers. And it is an absolute science. And I just think, I will always be slightly cynical. You look at how much space you need to keep track of all those glasses. And frankly, if you don't have those, what if you've got a wine that is this crazy blend? It's a bit like, where does it go on the wine list? Which wine glass do you use? Then do you do a comparison? Oh, actually, this is the best glass for those wines. So if I need an all-rounder, this is perfect.
To be fair, the thing is, like, for a very classic restaurant, these glasses that you brought, perfect, nice. After, to be fair, I can understand in a Michelin restaurant or like fine dining that they have a special type of glass for because the experience is not the same, the path is not the same. Maybe they have only 20 seating, so the sommelier have more time, for each table.
And there's more, and we would assume that the wine selection would be more. There'll be a lot more fine wine, and some of them may have more age on them. They might be buying at auction, buying some really interesting wine, and that's where what Riedel established that every glass style will actually deliver a very different experience. And if you try a Pinot Noir in a Syrah glass versus the Pinot Noir glass, it tastes completely different. So the fruit goes.
Really? You can see the difference?
Yeah, I've tried it, and it's like, holy shit. It's
like, that's very interesting.
Wow,
it is.
Really, I actually thought about bringing some other glasses, but I didn't have any to compare. But it's really interesting. If you try one varietal in different glasses, it is, it's really telling. So I don't diss them, but I think for more regular, everyday, casual, until you get into that really high end, you don't need all of that. And I'll probably get shot tomorrow, but see what happens.
Oh, that's true. And what do you think, we're going very deep as well, but of the restaurant who serve like wine, for example, I think the big chain is Franco Manca. They serve the wine in glasses like that, small glasses like that.
Like the small.
Small round ones, canteens.
Look, it's that classic. If you have a wine that you do not care about, that you just want something, let's say red and smooth, that will go with your pizza or whatever it may be, and you want something sort of rich and full, you can probably drink it out of a Vegemite glass. It's a table wine. And there's a charm to that. But when you're starting to invest in a carefully considered wine program, i.e. selection of wines, whether you're shipping it direct, whether you're buying it from others, I think it pays to, have a glass that works.
Completely.
Appropriate glasses for the appropriate wine list.
Yeah. But you don't need, and some of the most fun times can be drinking wine out of your little coffee glass.
It's, what, sometimes it's actually the best moments when you're having like a very good wine in like a very shitty glasses, outside.
But then you might think, God, imagine how it would, come on, Sideways comes to mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Out of a plastic glass.
Like
it's like, holy crap, that's the worst thing. It's absolutely, this is...
I've had, I had a friend from Zimbabwe that I met. She was a customer in a hotel bar that I used to work, and we kind of spoke and got quite amical, I would say, friendly. So she was a mom of two who was coming to see her kids to swimming in the UK, and she was on her own, so I served her, and she loves champagne, absolutely loves champagne, and she was there for like a week basically, and we got to know her, me and my missus and I, we got to know her more and more, and then we went out one night in a club, and she was like, I'll buy a bottle of champagne. Okay, and we were like in a very gritty club, one of those in Manchester where it's like, just gritty, the worst gin you can have, the worst vodka, whatever. And then she was like, I'm going to buy champagne. And she bought the only champagne there, it was Veuve Clicquot. But when she got the bottle, it was all dusty. And they gave us plastic cups, those long plastic cups. And she was like, who cares? We're out on a night out, you know. And she opened it. It didn't even pop or anything. Just like that.
It was already still wine at that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, she just poured it. There was like no more bubbles, and you know, even though she loved like really good wine, and she's very like into her wine. She has a wine shop in Zimbabwe, and she's an importer. She still went like, you know,
It doesn't
who
have
cares?
to be fancy.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't.
Who cares? We're having a good
But
time.
this is the thing about
Yeah.
hospitality, wine. Food, it's all about joviality and being and having fun and enjoyment.
Completely.
And if you get so up your own arse, you've lost. I think you've lost the message.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
And that's funny because most of the time, I don't know about you too, but sometimes the best experience you have in hospitality is like in a restaurant where you didn't expect anything about the food, the service, the wine list, and actually you leave, you still have some stars in your eyes.
Yeah.
It's like, you have like the best experience ever, and you didn't expect anything, but it was all perfect. Which sometimes with like very big Michelin restaurant, you have so much expectation that sometimes you never disappointed. It's very rare.
Itself. Yeah.
Exactly. You're still happy about it, but your expectation was so high that you're happy, but nothing more. You know what I mean? It's like you're still missing a bit of...
And I think that's something that, I am a pain in the ass, without question. And you sort of have a certain standard. You want something just normal, and beyond that is great. But when you have those expectations and they're not met, it's like, it was fine. Would you go back? Probably not. But it's those ones that are under the radar that are like, and it can literally be sitting on the beach drinking, okay, we're not talking restaurants now, but it's more about just the experience.
Of course, yeah.
And you know what? Most of the time I feel like it's people.
For sure.
Yeah, it's all
People.
about who you
The
drink
wine
it
list,
with.
the thing is like, food is important as well. Is there's food in if it's like a restaurant. A wine list you can always find something interesting on a wine list, I feel like.
You'd hope so.
Did you already find a wine list which was absolutely nothing
God, I have.
interesting?
I have,
Really?
yeah.
I'm not going to ask for which restaurant.
No, but I'm going to say there are a lot of pubs at the moment that are dumbing down their wine list. And and it hurts my soul because I like going to a pub. I don't really drink beer, but I want to eat, whether it's pizza, and there's loads of pubs doing great pizzas now.
Yeah.
But you want a nice glass of wine.
Yeah.
And when I have the absolute detritus of wine available, where I will pay them, I'll say, I will pay the same price as your house wine to drink something decent, because there are some wines that I have had that are literally undrinkable.
Yep.
And I have, I can't think where it was, which is probably a good thing, but I have bought two different glasses of red. It may have been a Rhone and something else, and I blended them to make a better wine. I blend wine. I blend wine for a living.
Yeah.
I have been several places where I've gone, holy, this is, when you sort of like, your ponytail goes up and it's like, oh my, what? When suddenly, it's sort of like that cartoon, it's like, holy, like, what the hell is that awful stuff? How did that get into a bottle? There is an opportunity that I will buy a couple of different glasses and blend them to make a better glass.
Yeah, but also like pub, I was more talking about restaurant wine bars. Pub, for me, it's very difficult because now you got this huge amount of like very nice pub, a mix of fancy and cool, a bit hype, like the Pelican or the Hero in Notting Hill and Medaval.
I don't think there's
So
enough
cool.
pubs that do.
There's not
that
enough,
take
but
care
not-
of their wine menu at least.
Yeah, but also I don't call this a wine list. When there's free white, free red, free rosé, for me it's not a wine list.
No, but
It's
that's
you
what we're
put
saying.
some
I think
wine because you need wine.
I think pubs need to pay a bit more attention to wine and stop thinking about buying the cheapest wine to make the biggest margins, because
Could not agree more.
and more people are drinking a non-alcoholic beer, but I mean, because I can't get a good glass of wine and I don't want a beer sometimes.
True. But do you think the majority of the customers of a pub, do you think they really want wine?
Yeah, I'd say yes in a way, but then you have some big brands of pubs are made for this kind of crowd, and then you have, the local pubs, but still, serving shit wine.
Yeah.
And I think if they had good wine, I see my parents whenever we go, I take them to a pub.
Yeah.
they're like, oh fuck, this is going to be disgusting.
You're isolating a whole section of the market.
Yeah,
Because not everyone does drink beer.
exactly.
And a lot of
And if-
people actually don't drink.
And if they're going no and low, or you go for beer if you're either into all the IPAs or versus a lager, okay. But some people don't want that,
Yeah,
especially if there are intolerances, blah blah blah. It's not difficult to have 2 good wines on the list.
completely.
One red, one white, and one rosé, and it should not be something that is high streety,
Yep.
well-known brand. It has to be something from maybe a classic region at a good price. It doesn't have to be 24 quid or 30 pounds. You can pay a little bit more, but have something on the list as a 175, not a 125 mil. Don't get me
Yeah.
started. Because the difference is, there is nothing more disappointing, because I won't go those places where I've had really rubbish wine that hurt my soul and my they just hurt.
Oh yeah.
I'm not
It's
going
like
back
vinegar.
there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there have been pubs that have great, food that I may have, bootlegged something in there and gone, and I said, look, I'll pay you. I want to drink my wine.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I think the problem for this kind of businesses like the pub with like big brand pub, I don't think they can really choose the selection of the wine.
I know, they're
I think
only
it's
about money.
They have like the big headquarter with like the buyers, and they buy the wine for like the 150 pubs of the country, and you have to choose between your little list, which one is not the worst one.
There are huge limitations, and I think pubs are, and one of the charms of moving and living in the UK is the pub culture here.
Yeah.
A Sunday roast is,
It's part of
no
the
one else
culture.
exactly. But I think they're doing themselves a disservice, and I understand the buying limitations, what they are. This comes from this is upper management issues, where this goes into a whole business conversation.
Yeah.
Because they won't see, what they can save and what they can make. And they're, we buy this for 5 quid and we can charge 35.
Yeah.
They're making a huge margin, but people aren't necessarily going to drink it again. And if you spend that little bit more and make a slightly less margin, or even just charge a bit, still make your margin, this day and age, wine consumers they have knowledge.
Yeah.
They are not ignorant. There's a lot of knowledge, and there are a lot of places where you can learn.
And there's all the people who drink wine that doesn't go to the pub. I mean, I include myself.
Yeah.
I go less and less to pubs because they don't have good wine.
Yeah.
And I would love to go more to pubs, because I only go to wine shops, wine bars, and I'd like to diversify. But the problem is, I know I'm going to be drinking beer, and I'll drink one beer, fair enough, but then a second, it's just too much now.
It gets too bloaty.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, beer is a beer, and a good beer is a good beer, but at the end of the day, like, it's not as, how would you say it, as appreciative than a wine.
I'm sure there'll be a few people who may disagree with you on that.
100% they will.
100%. No, for sure. But there's also one like pub now who are doing wine on tap, even like one bar.
Yes.
I know we talked a bit about
Yes.
that before.
And you can have good wine on tap, but there's an
can.
awful lot of shit wine on tap.
Yeah.
And there is no excuse.
Yeah, but isn't it like the kind of like the same thing for wine in general? There's a lot of really good wine, and there's a lot of shitty wine.
Oh my God, there's so much.
Yeah.
And judging, I see stuff and go, why did they put it in a bottle?
Yeah.
I know why they've submitted it. It's like, no, if it's not right, and I don't know, look, maybe I just give people too much kudos that they'll actually be intelligent about it.
Yeah.
And I understand that there are financial pressures, and this all come across as being very simplistic. But if it's a shit wine, if it's rubbish, doesn't matter. You cannot polish a...
No, but when you
as they
see
say.
the crazy thing is like when you see a wine in the supermarket for like £6, and you think about that, it's a wine from Australia. So you have the transport, you have the cost of the bottle, the cost of the wine, the cost of the importer. The margin is included in the £5-6 of the supermarket, and the people who make the wine, I don't want to imagine just the costs of the wine and the grapes. It would be like ridiculous.
But this is the issue, is when you're looking at that sort of level, is if that's when you're transporting in a bladder, So you're not doing by bottle, so it's being bottled in the UK,
Yeah.
which by default means that you're going to have more sulfur in those wines because they have to sulfur it before it ships. When it lands, it has to be sulfured again in case of any spoilage, and then they sulfur again before bottling.
Soon they'll do like Zara, you know, when they'll bottle the wine in the boat.
In store.
yeah.
On the way, they'll
Yeah.
bottle it, you know.
Between the border.
Yeah, add a little bit of sea salt to water in there just to, you know.
Maybe a good thing actually for our listeners. What, for example, like if you don't know much about wine, but you want to buy a wine like from, so again, I'm going to say it, but like if you can buy your wine from a wine shop, do it. It's always better, even if you can support like a small businesses. But if you want to buy your wine in a supermarket, what kind of advice you give? Like, don't go under £10 or like certain labels, big
Okay,
brands?
so I would normally say, stay above 10 quid. However,
Oula.
and now, my God, it's like sponsored by.
Penfold.
No, a friend of mine has just set up his own wine brand and is creating a wine, making it. It's a French
You
rosé.
see? Friends of yours.
I know,
Again,
it's a friend.
Sponsor.
But it has startled me because he actually just did a reel the other day, and because I tried it a little while ago and says, Vic, you are the most difficult person. I'm terrified to for you to taste this wine. And I was like, okay. And I'll actually probably be harsher on people that I know, especially if I'm like, it's bloody good. And on special, on promotion, it's £8 a bottle.
Oh, wow.
So that made me think, hold on a moment, you can get really good wine at that price. But that confuses your question. God damn it. But I think, under £5, all you're getting is essences
Sugar,
and you're getting essence and sugar and not
poison.
much else.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if people are not used to wine and they need an entry point into wine, those wines aren't a bad thing because at least you'll taste drinking that rather than some other product. But it's going to have more sugar. It's going to have a lot more it's going to be very overt and obvious without necessarily a lot of grape characteristics. It's actually it's an easy question but very difficult to answer.
It is. Yeah.
It really is, because I think there are wines that I'd occasionally go into a supermarket and find some good stuff.
Yeah,
But then there's also some that are so sweet and so jammy, and I may as well just be drinking Ribena.
A good example, chocolate block.
Never had it.
It's
But people
pretty
love
good.
it.
Yeah, it's good, it's okay. But it's still 20 quid, so it's not cheap for a supermarket
Is it
wine.
really?
But
Wow,
it's really a thing, and it's in supermarket. Boys, it's mainly I think in Waitrose, so it's a premium supermarket.
But then if you're going to talk about that and Waitrose, and I Loved and Found range they do, which they do a small parcel of a grape that no one's ever heard of, and they're all under a tenner. And those wines are fantastic, but it's a small run. Those I was really impressed with. I think M&S are doing a similar thing. So there are supermarkets doing exciting, interesting, where you can spend less, but you're not going at the gondola and just grabbing whatever's on special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, of course.
Lidl in France, I don't know much about in UK, but in France I know sometimes they're doing like special selection. They're buying like 1 or 2 pallets,
Yeah.
and they're saying this, and it's really good value.
Yeah.
Lidl has a reputation in the UK as well, sometimes to have some good wines. But
Yeah.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
There's some great wines.
yeah,
Which
That
is
it's
nice.
quite funny. But I mean, it's great in that sense.
And just to come back to Waitrose, to be fair, Waitrose, I feel like they have a pretty good selection,
They do.
pretty solid.
Sponsored by.
Send the check.
Waitrose and
Send the
partnership.
money, Waitrose. No, but they do have a really good selection, to be fair, but also it's a very expensive supermarket. So obviously
But see, it isn't.
it's kind of,
There's
it's not
a,
cheap
There's
though.
a perception, and I think I can spend less there at other more. If we're mentioning Waitrose versus say Tesco, I will
Yeah.
spend less at Waitrose than I would at Tesco.
Really?
Yeah, or
wow.
Sainsbury's. Oh my God, shall I list
Oh,
them all?
oh,
Waitrose is really expensive,
Yeah.
but actually for many things they're not.
Completely agree. Should we have a little taste of the?
Yeah, that little
Burgundy.
bit of, little bit of
Bourgogne.
yeah.
Sure.
we got-
Did you like
Yeah.
the champagne, by the way? We
Yeah.
didn't
The
talk about
champagne was amazing.
yummy?
It's really good.
Really delicate, bit of honey. There's some finesse to it.
Exactly.
good.
Yeah, I think it was like an easy drinking one. But yeah, beautiful.
But what's
Beautiful.
interesting about this, it's Pinot Noir dominant.
Oh, okay.
even though it presents more as a Chardonnay.
Yeah, but it's
And
Pinot
it
Noir.
doesn't
Yeah.
taste that much on the. I mean, I do love the Pinot Meunier in Champagne.
I
a
hate
lot.
it.
It's too team.
No way.
It's too team. You know, there's
Yeah,
people
yeah,
love
yeah,
it and
of
people
course.
hate it.
Sorry, that was a strong. Yeah.
It was very
Well, and
straightforward.
when I visited them, when I visited Geraldine, and we tasted all their wines when I was importing to Oz, and then we went to my favourite little brasserie in Reims, and their wine wasn't there. I'm like, oh. And so I had, oh my God, what's the number wine? They always have a number, like number 731. You know,
Jackson?
Jackson. And they have Pinot Meunier in there. Oh my God, it stood out like the proverbial. It was really amazing. But there's this muddiness that Pinot Meunier gives.
Yeah.
And it can really work in a champagne.
Yeah.
And I've seen still red on its own, which is delicious. Sparkling, but it's an early
Like some
ripener.
Coteau Champenois, you mean?
Yeah, it ripens early. It's a nice little, it's a bit of a stocking filler.
Okay.
But for my palate, it was that experience like, oh my God, suddenly I knew exactly what Meunier
Yeah,
tasted
yeah.
like. And it
To be
changed
fair,
my world.
Jackson is also like very good quality champagne.
It's very good.
it's
I
very
just
nice.
could see the Meunier. Sorry, Jackson, we love you too.
So shall we try this sponsored? No, Joe. It's not.
This is a Mercury Blanc, which is less than 20% of Mercury is made of Chardonnay. It's generally always red. Côte Chalonnais, so down towards Mâconnais, but not quite as far south, because that is what I call the cheap seats, affectionately. But it is, being that bit further south, it's a little bit more warmer, a little more tropical fruit, one might expect.
That's so funny. Even just the nose is so different. So we tried this one before the podcast in like in your glasses,
Yeah.
Quentin,
It's
or
completely
like
different.
very
Maybe
classic.
it's because it's in the different glass.
For me, it's the best region. For wine.
The Burgundy,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah?
For me, white or red.
value wise.
Yeah. Because for me,
Yeah.
is because I know I can get a Burgundy over £20. I know it's going to be good. It's insurance. That's it. I mean,
Yeah, it's a fair point.
it's boring. It might sound boring,
no,
but
not
it's
at all.
insurance.
It's a low risk investment.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
a blue chip.
That's it.
The only thing with Burgundy, I don't have that much fun because in all the other region you can afford these bottles, but in Burgundy at some point you're stuck because you can't really
can't
go
get
above.
beyond.
You know, it's too expensive. Alors, obviously you can always test things in testing, which is nice, but for me it's more about getting this bottle for a nice dinner with my friends and enjoying with family.
Yeah, I feel like it's a
Yeah.
special bottle
Oh, it is
because of the price, but the
Then if
quality
you
as
go
well.
back to France, it's going to be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, completely.
And I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
I mean, what's also scary is post-January, when the duty changes,
Yeah.
anything higher percentage alcohol, every point of a percent will increase in
except
price.
beer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's all right. Beer's gone down. We can keep drinking beer, people. And-
1p.
1p, yeah. 1p a
But
pint.
you're looking, if a wine is 14.5% and
Yeah.
more and more are at 14.5,
Yeah, of course.
that's going to add, I think 15% would add £3 cost,
Yeah.
like tax price. It's just, it
There's going to be a
It's-
petition. Don't worry, we had
it's
a.
ridiculous.
has everyone's been putting their capsules
Yeah.
Yeah.
into the post to our new minister.
Again, when I'm saying that, I'm talking about living in London. Obviously, when you're going to France, most of the bottles are accessible because even if you're going directly to the producer, usually they are very generous. They open a lot of bottles. You can test a lot of things. So it's very different. I'm just talking about if I want to do a dinner
For
on
sure.
Saturday in London.
But then that's where you need to gather some friends together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really hard, and particularly anything with either a bit of age or when you get into Grand Crus, there will often be an interesting, lesser-known Burgundy region on wine lists.
Yeah.
You can find good value. So things like the Salon that I talked about. Granted, it was a lot cheaper back then, but that wine is special, and it was slightly life-changing. It sounds like a bit of a... And also, I was at Margaux. So I did a 2005 sort of retrospective masterclass with Richard Bamfield last year, and we did some of the first growth 05s. And having been to Margaux itself and seen the cooperage and just see what they do, so one, you get the place and story, and the wine is, you go, oh, I get it now. But until you taste it, it's really hard to express or convey what those wines are.
Of course.
But yeah, is something worth 25 grand? I mean, if you've got a huge bucket of money and price is no object, but it's how do you value it? And it's such a subjective question.
No, of course.
I mean, there's an essay or three in there, I'm sure. When some of these become they're just being moved around the world for investment,
Yeah.
and they're not being drunk.
Yeah, FOMO.
For example, Jura is my favorite region. And since 5-6 years now, Jura is getting so expensive because there's not much stock.
No,
a lot of people are like,
yeah.
oh, this is nice. I'm ready to pay maybe £10 more for this bottle.
Yeah, because the
Yeah,
production is so
supply and
low.
demand.
Yeah.
And Jura, there is no expansion. It's a bit like
You can't expand the mountain, can you?
Cassis, also
Yeah.
in Provence.
Yeah.
That is landlocked. There's nowhere you can't plant more.
Yeah.
So those prices will go up over time.
That's true.
Did you like the Mercury Blanc?
Very good.
Mercury Blanc was
It's
delicious.
really easy, isn't it?
It was really good.
Supple,
Yeah,
creamy without being too creamy.
and it's
not
quite
too
long
fruity.
on the palates as well.
Huge persistence.
Yeah.
Nice
I think we
persistence.
should try the red now.
So now we're trying
We are trying. So this is en primeur. This is a Clos de Fèvre.
en primeur, okay,
En primeur, Baume Premier from Chanson.
from Chanson.
So that is their monopole. So it is just theirs.
So is the main Chanson like a family-run domain? Yeah.
I believe so. So Chanson is part of the Menzendorf group.
Part of the.
Menzendorf,
Okay.
Bollinger.
Yeah.
They actually are literally around the corner. Their offices
Okay.
in
Really.
Bermondsey. And you can always become a little bit skeptical, a little bit cynical, going, oh, it's a group. But Vincent was here today talking about their en primeur, showing their en primeurs. And I have a lot of time for Chanson. I think they have some very good plots. There's a lot of care and love, and it's still family based.
Group, for me personally, I don't really care if it's like a big group or not. I don't think it really affects the quality of the wine.
I think the issue that I have when you have big groups, and this doesn't, I don't put Chanson in this,
Yeah.
but when you have a large group that is, then they have much greater distribution, and you start to see it everywhere. And then you start to do some price comparisons, and
Yeah.
then you start seeing it in a supermarket, and then you start to roll down this sort of slippery slope, which I start to get a little bit grumpy about.
Maybe that's the thing. It's probably also when you start to see the wine in the supermarkets. Like here, for example, Whispering Angel or this thing, which is not that bad. I feel like Whispering Angel is good. It's just now it's everywhere.
But the problem is when you see it, on promotion for 12 quid,
Yeah.
and you see it on a wine list at 80 plus pounds, this
That's a
becomes,
problem,
then
right.
you've got to say to them, where are you putting what's your intention for the wine? Are you just trying to flog booze, or do you see this as a certain value point?
Yeah.
Because
No,
when
of
you
course.
start promoting it, that it's one is what the cost of the wine is, how much volume, and their volume has increased significantly over the last 10 plus years, but you're undermining the value of the inherent value of the brand because it becomes, the irony is it becomes more accessible, but as a result of that, you don't want to drink it so much because it's when you see it, 80 or 100 pounds on a wine list, and it's
Completely. And also, people tend to always look at the label, but it's important to look at what's inside the bottle because the label is always going to stay the same, whatever, most of the time. But the liquid inside, it can change like every year. And it can change dramatically in 4 or 5 years.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And where that fruit comes from, because it's not always domain grown. It's not all from a single vineyard or multiple owned vineyards. It's all bought. A lot of it's bought in fruit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Bonne Premier Cru,
Yeah.
Monopole.
Delicious.
Delicious.
Really pretty, juicy, bright, red berries. Dare I say it's almost New World. It's super accessible.
Maybe do you wanna explain, like, for example, if you have a Beaune and a Beaune Premier Cru, what's the difference? Why do we call it Premier Cru?
So you've got different categories in many different regions across the globe. But so if we're talking Beaune versus Premier Cru, this is talking about quality. So this is site specific. So village or village is a more general level. It'll often be lower within the region, so as in lower altitude. Whereas the Premier Crus will be higher elevation, so a couple of 100 meters above sea level. They can only be Premier Cru if they've been designated that. So it's because of the site, the soil, the terroir, as I said. So it's the microclimate that gives it a unique characteristic. Whereas if it is just a straight bone, it can come from a much greater area and be more, it'll just give a typicity. But what happens when you go into a Premier Cru is more specific to that particular area. I think I've done.
That's a perfect definition of a Premier Cru. Perfect.
There is more discussion to be done here.
Oh my
I'm
God,
sure
so
we can
much
tackle
more.
more subjects, and
Just
we can drink
scratching
more
that
wine
surface.
as well together.
Oh, see, now I've brought wine.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming again, and I hope
pleasure.
it hasn't been too long for the listeners. But
all-
I'm pretty
they've
sure
all
there's
fallen-
so much to learn about it. I think we really tackled some essential about wine,
Yeah.
how to serve it, regions. I mean, in the whole
There's a lot
shebang.
there, and I think I'm sure I've upset a few people, but at the same time, I think it's important to at least open the discussion.
Challenge and debate.
We don't have to be all agree. We just have to accept what other people think.
But I think it's good to be mindful and aware of it.
Completely.
Of course.
And that's how it should be.
And again, it's a chat,
So hey guys, if you really enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give us a little like and a 5-star rating. 5-star?
5-star.
On Spotify.
And Apple Podcast.
And Apple Podcast.
And in the meantime, or until next, Happy Christmas.
Oh yeah, Happy
And
Christmas,
Happy
Happy New Year. Thank you very much for listening.
And we'll see you next week for the next episode.
Take care.
Cheers.
The Hospitality Podcast.